Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Aslan Next and based in Eagan. Through Aslan Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
Hi, welcome. I'm Roxanne Meshar. I'm your host today for Access to Democracy. And we have a guest from one of the hidden gems in Eagan that we're not always aware of. I have with me today Dr. Eloise Erasmus from the Aslan Institute in Eagan. And I'm sure many people are not even familiar with the Aslan Institute. So welcome to the show, Eloise.
Thank you.
Nice to have you. I wanted to talk a little bit, we'll ask about background and things too, but the name, Aslan Institute, many people might immediately think about C.S. Lewis, Narnia, and the lion Aslan, and the lion is on your brochure. I don't know if you can get a picture of the brochure or not, but anyway, perhaps you can share the name and how that came about.
Yeah, Aslan is actually inspired by the C.S. Lewis stories because the lion itself is a symbol of this awakened consciousness. And if for those of you who are familiar with the story, Aslan is the protector, the compassionate, wise one. But Aslan itself and the lion is a symbol across cultures and across spiritualities. So Aslan itself is not simply Christian-based, but is really across spiritualities, and it's the symbol of the enlightened being. And really the inspiration of Aslan then is that we're really committed to being an integrative wellness clinic that helps people and providers reach their full potential and evolve towards their full potential as a compassionate, wise being that's of service to the world.
So the whole person.
Yes, the
not
whole
just
person.
medical, not just emotional, not just mental, but really it's spiritual.
Yes.
The whole person,
Yes.
actually. So tell me a little bit about the background of Aslan. How did it come to be? Because that's such an interesting story. There's a founder there with an interesting story.
Yeah, the founder of Aslan Institute is Lyndall Johnson, and she's actually my mother. And
Okay.
she comes from South Africa. She was raised in Zimbabwe and South Africa. And part of her journey and story was really working for social change in South Africa with grassroots development. We lived there during apartheid, so there was a lot of racism, sexism, a lot of oppression, and so there was a real passion to have change happen. And I think one of the things that we came across in South Africa is, while we want structural change, that's limited without the inside of a person changing as well, their own consciousness, because
It's not enough to change the externals. That only
Yes.
gets you part of the way.
Exactly.
Something has to happen on the inside.
Exactly, and you know, you encounter a lot of internalized racism, internalized any ism where you can identify with being oppressed or a victim or living out old beliefs or ideas that you don't even believe. And so a lot of the Aslan Institute's passion is, how do we get aware of what it is that we think and we believe that is socialized at a very young age without necessarily conscious awareness of that. And so we provide a space where mindfulness or being aware is an integral part of what Aslan stands for, and we provide a lot of practices, whether it's mind, body, spirit practices, to get aware of our conditioning and to try and transcend that.
So how did your mother happen to get from South Africa, in which you are also from South Africa, to Eagan? How did that?
Yeah, she married a man from from this part of the world, so ended up here. She was a psychologist. Aslan actually started as a mental health clinic, and she worked a lot with trauma clients and people struggling with, you know, a multitude of experiences, anxiety, depression, and so forth, and really came across that, you know, it's really helpful to have psychology and therapy and talk therapy, but it's so much more effective if we also have the body and the spirit.
So say more about that. What would be the practices for the body, for example, that would aid that healing?
So currently at Aslan we have practitioners who offer nutrition, who offer yoga, who offer healing touch or Reiki, and so a lot of trauma gets stored in the body, and so while we can talk and get awareness from a cognitive or emotional place, there's also a lot of processing through the body that can happen, that helps support someone.
And if we don't do the healing with the body, sometimes that can ultimately enable or be partially the cause of disease down the road, perhaps, you know, not in all cases, but sometimes that can happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, so it's very, very helpful. We have a lovely group of providers at Aslan, and it's very much a multidisciplinary team where, for example, I'm a licensed psychologist at Aslan, so if I have a client coming in with depression, I can refer that person to nutrition and to yoga and mindfulness and a healing touch, and so the person can get a lot of services, you know, in different modalities that really helps move along the therapy or moves along the healing, the body healing.
And we know moving the body around in yoga or whatever is helpful to depression, because when you go to your doctor and if you're screened for depression, one of the first things they say is get out and exercise, you know, and that's one of the first things, get the body moving, because the endorphins get going, and that's all part of that healing process that will start to pull the person out of you know, what otherwise looks so bleak or impossible. So.
Yes, and we offer a lovely, there's a mind-body skills group training that happens too, which is so nice, because then people can go and learn some of these ways in which they can regulate themselves, so it's really empowering. Deep breathing, progressive relaxation, biofeedback, eugenics, you know, it's a lot of different things that you can then take home. And I've had people who've come in who've learned these skills as adults and then share them with their children.
Oh, how interesting.
And it's been just phenomenal to see how, as we get more empowered and more aware, then we can pass it on to the rest of our community and the people we love. So it's just really wonderful.
And children, you know, I have to say, when I was teaching, and as pastoral associate, sometimes I did ministry with small children, and I would do meditation with them. And it's interesting, children meditate quite freely, and I remember at one point asking them to just close their eyes and get comfortable and relax in the chair. And even little 6-year-olds, they'll be in a little folding chair, but they recline out and the pencil falls from their hand and they totally relax like they're in a king-size bed. I mean, adults couldn't even do that, but they totally go with the flow and they meditate. They
it's
are present.
Wonderful. And to start at such a young age.
Yes. So it is funny. Tell me, we didn't get a chance to hear your background, so you're also working at Aslan. Tell me a little more about how that came about.
You know, I went to the University of Chicago and did my bachelor's degree in anthropology, thinking that I wanted to go into the law, and I've always been very interested in human rights and social justice and thinking I'd become a lawyer. And through my experience, again, it led me back to where my passion lies, is really with shifting what's going on within a human being. And so I pursued a degree in culture and spirituality in California, and a master's degree, and then a master's degree in psychology, and a PhD in psychology in New York. And all of those steps have really led to really trying to understand the individual within the social, cultural context that we are in, as well as a developmental perspective of how the past influences and creates patterns that become so automatic, but that those patterns are also so culturally influenced.
Yes.
Right?
And I think often in our culture we have this Descartes understanding of the individual. I think, therefore I am. But coming out of Africa, you will know that the understanding there is very different. It is more I am because we are.
Yes.
In other words, these communal patterns and historical patterns totally form us in ways we're not aware of, correct?
Yes. And in South Africa there's a term, it's called ubuntu, which is really the
Ubuntu.
term about this interconnectedness, that my well-being is your well-being is my well-being. And so it's really kind of shifting our consciousness, awareness that we are all interdependent.
Yes.
And living from that place. And so a lot of, also at Aslan, in addition to the providers providing therapy to individuals or families or couples, we also have a training institute. And it's the Aslan Training Institute, and part of that training institute...
Is that part of what we have
yes,
here?
Yes, actually it is.
So if the camera can move in, so there's some information here on the Training Institute, so you can take a little closer look there. There we are. Thank you.
Yeah. Part of the Training Institute is we offer workshops for individuals interested in their own growth, but also for providers in the field, which provides CEUs, professional development CEUs.
So other psychologists could
other
come.
Psychologists, and
social as well
workers.
As people interested in personal growth who want to know for themselves.
Absolutely. And part of the teaching is providing a very broad perspective of human evolution and how that happens within the lifespan. So where am I in my own journey, and if I were just to summarize it, what we're looking at is when we're first born, we're not really aware of ourselves, right? We're not really aware that I am a being with thoughts and feelings.
Baby can't differentiate between the mother and
exactly,
itself.
It's symbiotic. So there's a state of coming in where there aren't clear boundaries, and then you start developing boundaries through socialization. This is me, this is you. We start developing thought, we start developing beliefs, and a cluster of behaviors. And all that gets developed, we talk about as ego development. And we get into a pattern of automatically acting out certain personalities or defensive structures or ego.
And we're not aware of it always. It's
No,
just
we're
a
not
family
even
pattern.
aware of
It's
it.
something I've done maybe since I was small.
Little. And
right.
it's been very valuable because it's kept us safe, and it's been a way to cope, and it's a way to achieve.
But at some point it becomes less helpful, less valuable, and it maybe can even become obstructive, and then maybe people want to find out when the same situation starts to play out more than once and it's not helpful anymore, it starts to be hurtful. That's the time maybe you seek somebody professional who can observe you and say, there's a commonality in all these situations that you've related about to me, and the commonality is this. This is what I see happening, and that's very helpful for people to take a look at that.
And we talk about that stage in our human life as then entering into a time in your life when you're observing, what am I doing? Wait a minute, this is serving me, this isn't serving me. So that instead of feeling like the ego's in charge, the ego becomes a tool in the function of yourself. And part of that process becomes a movement further towards greater expansive perception, instead of all or nothing thinking, seeing the both and, instead of only seeing my perspective, seeing your and my perspective.
Many others.
Developing a capacity for empathy, developing a capacity for service, for compassion, for wisdom. And so the training is talking about that process from many different lenses. And so the first training is the teaching, and then the second training is practices. So what would be helpful practice at any stage of development to help move you further along in that trajectory?
What helps me as a parent to stop and say, just because my parent responded this way and disciplined me this way, maybe this is not the best way for me to discipline my child or this particular child in this particular instance, and that helps me step back maybe and say, what would be a better alternative? What are other choices? It doesn't have to be identical to what I experienced or what was done to me, for example.
And then through that practice, as a species, we're evolving.
we move forward.
We move forward.
Very nice.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very exciting, you know,
It is
having these
exciting.
trainings, and what I love about these trainings is it integrates everything I love and that I've been passionate about in all my training: anthropology, spirituality, psychology, and we touch on all
It's
those
all
different
there.
aspects. Yeah,
It's all
so
there.
It's very fun.
Very
really
interesting.
fun.
A lot of people, young people I know, might often take psychology in college, and I think part of the impetus to do that is that desire for self-knowledge. Who am I? What am I about? What can I know about myself and my family background and my cultural background? And they take psychology and they want to know more and they try to learn. Not all of them become psychologists, obviously, but you know, people are on a quest to know, you know, what am I doing here? What is the point of my life, and how do I want to make, not what's the meaning of my life, but the better question, how do I make a life of meaning, something that is meaningful for me and leaves a legacy for people who will come after me. So
yeah, and we actually even pose some of those questions in this workshop, which is asking those big questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What's the meaning here?
yes.
You know, so it's really quite lovely to go on that journey with many different people, and then we
Yes.
all learn in community from each other. So
And
it's-
yes, so you get many different opinions, many
Yes.
different ideas, people from many different backgrounds sharing their experiences or answers to that question, because there are many answers and the answer's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Life is surprisingly and pleasantly and amazingly gray. You know, everything is on a continuum, and we get up to a point in our lives where we realize that there isn't just one way or no way. There are perhaps many ways to grapple with a question or respond to a situation or consider who we are and how we're moving through life. So at any point along the line, we can step back and take a look, a closer look maybe.
Yeah.
So Aslan is kind of committed to self-growth and holistic perspective, and you have many people on staff that can help people do that. And you talked briefly, but I'm going to maybe let you share a little bit about some of the, I know meditation free on Wednesdays is available. Maybe say more about that and some of the other services available.
Yes, you know, we really want to offer services to the community that is affordable and relevant. And so we have several offerings that's free. We have meditation.
Free is affordable, yes.
Exactly. So every Wednesday from 10 to 11:30 we have meditation, which includes sitting and walking meditation. That's offered by Martin Lan, and he's a Zen Buddhist monk, and he's also works interdisciplinary with the House of Prayer.
Wow.
So there's a Christian as well as a Buddhist, but also a spiritual perspective. And so what the meditation is learning practices to be aware, to be reflective, to create space, and to develop mindfulness. So we have that going on every week. We also have a monthly movie night where you look at a documentary or an interesting movie that brings up a lot of issues. We discuss that. We have dialogue.
I've been to the movie night,
you
and I
have?
have to say, they have them in the summer. It's very relaxing. They have popcorn there even. You're in that, you have a gathering room on the lower level,
Yes.
kind of overlooks the Minnesota River. It's just beautiful off Old Sibley Highway there. Interesting little building, but very welcoming and fun to be in. But I've come to see the movies, and the movies are pretty complex and provocative, but what's so wonderful is afterwards there's maybe 20 or 30 people in this nice sized room, and we all can share afterwards about our experience of the movie. So we have a chance, I get a chance to share what struck me and what I remember most and what I thought was interesting, or what 3 surprising things or 3 things that I was not so enamored with, but then to hear other people's take very different than my own, and then think, oh, I didn't even think about that with that character or with the plot line or with the point of the movie where the director might have been going. So people bring all kinds of really interesting insights, and I just love being part of that discussion. It's very fun.
Yes, it's really fun. And Lyndall also offers a Saturday morning forum. On Saturday mornings, it's, I think, donation-based, where she brings up a topic, whether it's shame or whether it's anxiety or stress. And that's also a lovely way, is to come and try out one of these.
So sample it.
Sample, yeah, it's
Try
a
it
lovely
out.
sampling of services just for the general public.
So, and talking about sampling, I'm going to move you into something called a taste, a yearly retreat, a taste of Aslan, which is the Yami retreat. And you have brought a little box of cards.
I did.
And I'll let you.
This is actually the first year that we're doing a
Perfect.
retreat.
Hold it still. They can see it on the camera. Beautiful. Thank you.
That we're offering a retreat to the public that is really trying to give you a taste of what Aslan's about. So it's on August 7th, 8th, and 9th. It's a weekend retreat. And what it is the beginning of the retreat gives you an overview of the evolution of consciousness, but on Saturday you get all these different practices, including Y stands for yoga, A for art, M for mindfulness, M for music, and I for intimacy. So we're learning and doing practices. Part of our approach is it's not just learning in the head, it's actually doing it and embodying it so that change is happening within your
Feeling
whole
it.
being.
Yes.
It's not just a cognitive understanding, it's not just emotional, it's not just physical, it's all three. And we use these different modalities. This is actually a game that Connie Cohen, an art therapist, and myself created. And they have little...
So there's cards in there.
Yeah, there are cards in here, and each one gives a little instruction of something to do. So all the Y's would give a yoga instruction, all the A's would be an art instruction. So it's a way for you to take it home and do it at home with friends.
Very nice.
Yeah, and so the retreat itself will have yoga, it will have art therapy, it will have meditation, it will have intimacy, it will have all these themes, and so it's a lovely way to, again, take some time, connect with yourself, and also experience what are the different services that Aslan can provide.
And I have to say, I've done yoga in that beautiful room downstairs, and it's wonderful because the view is spectacular. It's just a beautiful place to do yoga. And I've also been at one of the retreats as an observer, and I have to say the food for the lunch was wonderful. So vegetarian, delicious. You get a salad and get I think there was a lovely vegetable soup she was serving that day. It was delicious. So you get something healthy to eat, healthy snacks, healthy beverages in the morning, and then a delicious lunch to kind of keep you going during the day.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because we always offer organic, gluten-free options, and part of the practice there is seeing how connected we are to the earth, and we're really committed at Aslan to sustainability with the earth and seeing our interconnection with it. We've, in addition to doing this yearly retreat, we've also offered pilgrimages each year. And
say more about that.
Yeah,
so that's an interesting
and
part
there've
of
been a few
Aslan.
really, I'll mention one of the first pilgrimages was going to Ireland, and that was on eco-spirituality and the sacred feminine. And then last year we went to South Africa, and the theme there was on truth and reconciliation and forgiveness. After apartheid in South Africa, you had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where people could come and tell their story of what really happened. So instead of denying what happened, talking about what happened.
It's very different than
it
what
is.
many countries experience, including our own.
Yes.
And I think the people on that pilgrimage got to meet Desmond Tutu, for example,
and
was
that
part
was
of that.
such a highlight for people.
Yes.
To see this human being embodying these principles, compassionate, humorous, loving.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
really
beautiful.
wonderful.
Yeah, and then this year they're going to South Africa again, but doing sacred activism. And for each of the pilgrims in America, we'll be pairing with a South African to work together on what would grassroots development be that is much more sustainable.
Really interesting. Now, next year?
Next year, we're offering a pilgrimage to Bali.
That's
and
pretty exotic
It's very
place.
exciting in March 2016, and that's going to be about creativity and also eco-spirituality. So we hope people will sign up. Those actually fill up very quickly.
Yes,
so
I was amazed.
Yes.
All of the pilgrimages, the last few, have filled up. In fact, the one for this year filled up almost immediately when people had only returned last year from the last one, and it was already filled. So if you're interested in taking any of the pilgrimages, you'd want to get signed up quickly. So why Bali? That's on the other side of the planet. how did that come to be a place?
In addition to being in Bali, they're also going to go to Borobudur, which is in Indonesia, and it's a sacred site. The temple of Borobudur actually has, when you walk around it, there are reliefs all the way around that tell stories that point to different practices that lead you to enlightenment, so that by the time you get to the top, you've walked and learned the teaching, and on the top of the temple it's a symbol of enlightenment. So Bali is an amazing, creative, ecological place, beautiful place, and they'll be tapping into a lot of what's the local customs and religion and practices, and connect with the earth as well. So
wonderful,
very creative, beautiful place.
Diversity,
Yes.
which is so important, especially we tend to congregate with people who are much like ourselves, so as most people do. So we don't always find ourselves in very diverse circumstances, but this is a real way for people to engage with another culture, another way of understanding, see how other people view the world, which oftentimes can be quite different from our own, and see that there are many other ways to view the world, and each of them unique, and each of them having something wonderful to offer. While many wonderful things to offer coming out of our own Western North American culture, other cultures have different points of view and other things to offer, and so to get a sense of the richness of that and experience that with people who are familiar with where you're going. You're on a guided tour, so you're not going to worry about getting entry tickets to enter into a sacred space, or to find parking, or to deal with hotels. You're not dealing with that.
It's all organized. It's
all
really
organized.
lovely, and every day I believe they start with meditation and yoga. You get tours, you get to learn more about the culture in Bali. There's great creativity, so it's
really, it is a pilgrimage. It's
It
not
is a
business as
pilgrimage.
usual. It's not a guided vacation tour. It's a little bit different type of tour.
It is.
You are
And
changed when you come back.
absolutely, and it's hard
transformed.
work. And that sometimes, even going to Africa is putting people in they went into the wilderness, and some of the primal fears that can come up when you go into the wilderness, where there are lions and elephants, and for you to really experience what's that like when that fear comes up. And it's true, wherever you go in the world, something's going to come up because you're experiencing something that's different or unfamiliar, and you're stepping out of your comfort zone. So it's wonderful. People come back just so appreciative and transformed.
They're different. You're not the same person when you
Exactly.
travel. Will do that to us, and a particularly guided and deeper pilgrimage definitely will change us. We only have a minute left, and it's gone so quickly. So hopefully you or your mother, but we'll come back and share more about the pilgrimages, which people are interested in. But if you can quickly give the website where people should connect if they want to know more.
Yes, it's www.aslaninst.com.
Okay, Aslan Inst, I-N-S-T.
That's right.
Very good. It's just been a pleasure to have you on today, and to hear there's this jewel sitting in our backyard, right on Old Sibley Highway off Diffley, right across from Metcalf Junior High. And we're almost, many of us, not aware of it, although many people I know in Eagan are, and they are familiar with it and do avail themselves of the services at Aslan. But I would encourage you to stop by, check out many of the providers, check out who's there, take some of the brochures if you need to, try the free meditation, try the movies during the summer, try the Saturday morning, and check it out. So thank you so much, Eloise, for being with me. It's been wonderful to have you on Access to Democracy.
Thank you so much
for this show.